Alrighty, hello everybody, this is beau-hindman for massively.com. It is, let's see here, the 18th of April 2012. That makes it a Wednesday. Wednesday being Second Life Wednesday around these parts. What I like to do is I like to stream a little Second Life on every Wednesday if I can, use the same time, 5 p.m. EDT, and see what we can discover. Second Life is filled, absolutely filled to the brim with things to do and to discover, so I try to stream some of the cool things that I find. I've been playing, my account's about 8 years old, so I've got a lot of good ideas, and some, you know, I have some expertise when it comes to building. I haven't kept up with the new stuff like the mesh and all that, but we'll do a stream for that one day too, because that's going to be really, really cool. But a couple rules before we get started, of course. If you have any questions, just holler in the chat room. Just holler it out, don't worry about it. If you have any tips or tricks or anything, same thing. Try not to post any links if you can, because we're trying to, unless it's a links, you know, pertaining to the show, as usual. What else is I going to say? If you have any problem with the stream, just give it a little time there, and it should clear itself right up. It's not really a big deal. But today I thought I would do something really cool. I thought I would build a skybox, or at least attempt to show how a skybox can be built, to kind of start covering some of the basics. And what I mean by a skybox is just what it sounds like, a box in the sky, a house, a home, whatever you want to call it, in the sky. There's a couple reasons you want to do this, and there's a couple reasons that it's so popular in Second Life to have your home built in the sky. And actually there's a cool spaceship around here somewhere I'll have to show you guys, maybe when I go back on the land, when I'm showing you how to raise it up in the air. One of the main reasons that I have found it's really neat to build it in the sky, if you can, is because you can get away from a lot of the lag. If you, let's say you're on the mainland, or if you're on a laggier area, you know, a sim or something like that, or your neighbors are just absolutely filled with noise, you know, like there's lights everywhere and stuff. Well, you can build up in the sky, and you kind of have your own private area up in here, up in the clouds. Now I have some custom weather going on right here. I've set the that texture's messed up just a little bit. I've set the weather and stuff a little bit custom, so you know it's going to look a little different. You can change that in your viewer if you'd like. You know, it's just kind of a cool opportunity to kind of be by yourself, you know, up in the sky. Now the thing is you're actually, you know, literally off of the ground, as you can see. So you're building on your land just like you would build anywhere. You know, you have to have permissions to build, so, you know, you have to. So if you have some land, you know, you can build up in the sky. Now, be aware that if you're renting, or if you're in certain areas or whatever, they might have some rules against skyboxes. You just have to figure that out and see what the story is. In my particular case, I decided to go ahead and grab this because on the mainland, if you look, a lot of the time you can find dirt cheap, as far as, you know, like the Lindens will actually put out some land, some government land, you know, and you can grab it for, let's say the smallest size you can get is 512, and I've grabbed a 512 here just to show that on 512 you only get 117, somewhere around there, prims. Let's see here. Yeah, 117. So, you know, it's not so many, but I thought it would be a fun project to not only build on a skybox, but also to show how to build using very few prims. So the advantage is that you can be a new player, you can be somebody who's never really owned land, and buy a really small plot you know, in the mainland, in the area that's kind of, you know, everybody's on private servers now. The real serious builders, I've been on private servers. You know, let's go down the bottom here, by the way. There we go. I went teleported to the ground to show you, start off. But a lot of serious builders are on private land, you know, so there's, you know, if you wanted to get in that later, you could go, you know, get your own sim for all I care. It's just, a lot of people really can't afford really nice chunks of land, so you can go along, you know, and find a decently priced piece like this, just a 512 section, and then build a skybox, and then you're way up in the sky. And actually there is a guy, I want to say he's over here. Can't remember where it was, but he's over there somewhere. I'd have to look and see if he pops in the view here. The big UFO, which was really cool, kind of a skybox. Well, I'll find it in a minute. But anyway, so once you grab that cheap land, you know you could say, well, you know, I could build right here where everybody else is building. And if you notice, there's no rules, and there are in certain servers and stuff, but in general mainland areas there are no rules as far as style and taste. I mean, you can't dictate taste really in Second Life. So you might have neighbors that look really cool and have like just a cool looking house like this, and you might have some neighbors that have red and purple rain like this, which is kind of odd looking. So you want to have something that kind of looks cool that you're surrounded by. I was doing some terraforming here, by the way, to show. So, which if you build up on the in the sky, you have your own surroundings that you can do your own thing on. See, so I have no neighbors now. Now you can run into other people, of course. Other people can build up in the sky. So if my neighbor wanted to kind of come up and match my height, they can do that. There's no rules against that. But you can just continue to see. There's another skybox right there. Somebody else built one. You see how it's nice, private kind of thing. See, there's another one there. So they start to appear as you get up in the sky. It's not like you won't have anybody surrounding you, but it's just an advantage that you can actually. For me, I think the best advantage is to kind of keep the lag down. Although that's not really hard to do nowadays in Second Life. Even kind of a basic computer, that you can get in a box from Walmart could probably run Second Life just fine. And you can always adjust that. I don't have many problems with lag. I just like to kind of get away, and also I like to be able to have the whole environment here be basically blank. So let me show you a couple ways here that we can build it. Let's go. Let's look for a sandbox actually real quick, and I'll just show you on a sandbox. That might be a little bit easier. So I'm going to put sandbox into the world map. Hit enter. There's all these different sandboxes on the list. As you can see, a sandbox is literally what it sounds like. It's an area to build, so that you can it's like a freebie area. People allow you to build and put. Oh, why is that? Why is it not letting me teleport? I just want to teleport. Sometimes you'll have errors running. So it's an area that people have either allowed the lindens of it's a public linden area, or or it's a player-owned area that they've said, hey, we're going to put out some. You can basically build here for free. This one over here, here's a sign. I think this one's a public. Yeah, see. Let's see, about land. Yeah, this is a linden-owned one. So basically, this is it's just an area for you to experiment and build on. And then what happens is it cleans itself every 4 hours. So you can just leave your stuff here if you want. It'll return it to you later. I typically like to pick up my creations anyway, just because. But we'll show you a little bit about just some basic building, and then how to. The big thing is how to get that basic thing up into the sky. So you're going to build your, let's say, your little you can start with a foundation. You can do this in a lot of ways. What I did is whenever I actually had that little chunk of land, I actually planned out, excuse me, I just laid out basically a square or rectangle that was the exact size of my land. Now, of course, the larger your land gets, the harder that's going to be to do. But you could get some basic ideas. You can also make your view. You can make your view to show you your borders, so that you can see exactly where you can build to, or you can. What you're going to typically do is you could build on the ground, take that object, that house, that layout, whatever, save it, put it in your pocket, and then raise it up and then lay it down up in the air. But you're really trying to the first goal is to try and get the object that a foundation for whatever you're building up into the air. Now there's a couple different ways you can do that. Let's color it something here real quick just to make a default. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you could do that. There is, you could simply zoom out, lift, zoom out, lift. Now you're going to run into some problems already because you can't zoom to a certain point and still lift. So you can do it like that. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'll just fly, so I'm going to hit page up, or whatever the default for your fly up is, and I'm going to just keep flying up and then slowly raise it, and then fly up and slowly raise it. So you can do that if you want. As you can see, this is there's a million ways to do this. You just got to get this object up in the air. So this is how we used to do it back in old school. We just fly up real high. The problem is if you notice, I'm going to fly up really, really high here, and we'll start running into a ceiling where I just can't fly anymore. And I'm probably already there. Oops. See, so there's that object way down there. Let's see if I can fly up anymore. I don't think I am. Yeah, so you'll hit basically a ceiling that you can't fly above. The gravity it works kind of the opposite in Second Life. You hit a point where gravity starts to actually keep you on the Earth instead of breaking free of gravity. So it's kind of a it's unfortunate. So what you can do, there's a couple different things you can do there. You can let me go ahead and fly down here real quick and get my object. So you can keep flying up and then raise the column to the max height. Let's say this was the max height for flying, and you can say, okay, well, I don't want to fly anymore, so I'm going to build right here, and you can build your object here and see I'm automatically in the sky. Because how it works in Second Life is it's not the game, the world, whatever, does not care where you place your objects. Not only on the ground but up in the air. So you can build anywhere. So as you can see, I've built way up in the sky here. Now, probably an easier way to do this, though I've discovered, is the first thing you want to do is probably go to the to the marketplace, which I'll open up here real quick. You go to Second Life, you go to the marketplace, you go however you want. Just go to the marketplace. Okay, and in the marketplace, you're going to search for a teleporter, free teleporter. You can buy a teleporter. You can script one, whatever you want to do, you can do that. I'm going to let that load for a second because the internet's running a little bit slow for some reason, probably because I'm streaming. But anyway, so once you have that teleporter, the cool thing you can do is once you have kind of this idea of how large you want to build, you can take a little object like this. Again, a foundation, something to stand on. Picture this as your building platform. Okay, let's change the texture once again. And if you don't, I'm going a little fast on building. One day I'll actually build. I've done it before, but I'll build something slower. But if you have any questions about how I'm building this stuff as I go along, just holler. I'll try to explain. And then you could take one of your teleporters. Let's look at mine. I have a teleporter in here somewhere. Forget what they're called. I can't remember. It's not called teleporter. It's called something else. But anyways, you could attach. You basically res that teleporter on here. So let's say this is your teleporter bow. So let's say that ball is your teleporter, right? Meaning that is your a teleporter is basically an object that you can use to see right here. There's one right there. To actually, somebody can click on it and teleport to a certain point on your land. A lot of people use it in shops and stuff like that. It'll say, here, click this and teleport, and this will teleport you to. Here's one that takes pay. It'll teleport you to our shopping district. It'll teleport you to our art gallery or whatever. So teleporters are really important in Second Life. They're a way for people to get around really easily. So just grab you some. There's actually some. Here's a free one. I've grabbed a free one offline. I forget what it's called, but it actually worked really well. And they're in my land. I just can't remember what I called those guys. Let's do this. Let's go back one. You can just hit back on the on your thing here, and it'll take you to your land or to your last. It's like a browser. It takes you back. So here's my teleporter. That is called the. I got the VA as in Virginia Apple teleporter. So let me go back. Where'd my object go? I still have it. There it is. So you could just like again, like I said, it's like a web browser. You can just go forwards and backwards. Just change the lighting a little bit here. There we go. Just the lighting, the change helps you kind of see the objects a little easier. So let's just go ahead and delete that. I'll show you real quick. Oops. Okay, so let me look for those teleporters again. VA. Okay, so there we go. Let's just drag one out. Okay, so whenever you drag it out, it's going to say, this one in particular says, hey, just what is this one called? So let's just call this one ground, for ground floor, right? Okay. So that's our ground floor teleporter, right? So you're going to want to put that, on the ground somewhere that your land, basically. So there's our ground floor. So then let's get another one. Let's put it right here. Okay, let's call this one upper, for just, upper level, whatever. So now what we have is we have a teleporter called ground floor and a teleporter called upper. And you right click on it and you touch and it'll tell you where you want to go, ground or upper. So let's say if I said ground, I could hit teleport and it's going to teleport me literally right to the other one. So alright, so now that we have these two teleporters, now you can do this in a couple different ways. You can use teleporters. I used several to kind of continue to build up higher. So let me show you basically how I do that. You want to get your ground one established so you can always just get back to it. So you're going to edit, you're going to select them both as they're both selected, see? And now I can lift them together. And now you can lift them up in the sky. We can go ahead and fly if we want. We can do this however. There's a lot of ways. Again, like I said before, there's a lot of ways you can raise your foundation. You can do it. This is probably the easiest way, and I'll show you why. I believe actually I can continue to lift as I thought I used to be able to do that. I might be able to do that. Now there's other ways that are probably even easier. So if anybody's watching watching right now or watching later and knows of an easier way, just holler. Email me, whatever, Twitter, follow, whatever. So let's say you get to the point, you're starting to get to the point where you can't fly anymore. You're just too high. Or you might want to do this just so that you're occasionally, you have some, see, I am getting to the point where I can't fly anymore. See that? It's starting to pull me down a little bit. Alright, so let's stop flying. Now, so now as you can see, I've established this so I can touch, go to ground, teleport, bam, now I'm on the ground again. There's my skybox way up there. And then I can touch, upper, teleport. And of course your teleport can work in different ways. It might be a little Star Trek animation like that one I showed her. There's a lot of different ones, so just take your time. You don't need to this is the VA teleporter. It was free. It works fine for me. You can script your own, however you want to do it. Just the teleporter is easy. Now the reason you're getting a teleporter, one of the advantages of getting a teleporter, is now you have, you can't fly anymore. You've hit the spot where you can't fly anymore. I'm not sure, and somebody would have to correct me. It's been a long time, but I thought there might have been some scripts or ways that you can actually beat the gravity and continue to fly up. You can get a free, like an object that you wear, and it'll allow you to continue to fly up. I'm not real sure, but let's just, for the sake of, to not just continue getting into stuff. Let's just assume that this is as high as you can fly. You don't want to fly anymore. So you can edit, you hold down shift, you're going to make a copy of that basically object there. See? So now we've got our next floor and we're going up and up. Now what you want to do there, of course, before you continue to going up, is you want to attach another teleporter to it, call it upper 2 or whatever you want to name it, and then continue to raise it. And when you get to a point that you can't raise it anymore, see, because I can't fly, here, actually let me do that. Let me go ahead and lay down let me do this. I'll throw a teleporter on it real quick so that I can actually do that. Let's call that one upper, or whatever, you can call it whatever you want. So see, now I have my, let's say I did that first, Flight Feather Robster Rob says, okay, so yeah, you might actually, is it called Flight Feather? Because that sounds really funny, because if that's what it's called, that's what it was called back when I played, first started playing years and years and years ago. So that's funny to hear it still called that. But basically, if you later get a script where you can just keep flying, you can do that as well. But this is for people who might, not have something special, not know. See, so I've just basically recreated this teleporter pad, and I can continue to raise it, and continue to raise it, blah, 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 and I keep going, right? So then I can now touch, go to upper, teleport, bam. So now I'm even higher than I was able to build before, but then I was able to fly before. So you can continue to repeat that process to continue to build higher if you want. You can do what Rob suggested, or that we were talking about a little bit. Bless you, honey. And use like a flight feather or something that does not prevent that stops you from flying up, and you can just keep flying up. One of the reasons I like using this method though is it actually gives you different tiers that you can teleport, and it's kind of, you could build, since they'll all be in line, you could build several different skyboxes. You know, you could have 2 or 3. Now, remember though, if you're on a small chunk of land, you know, you're cutting into your allowance of objects already. But see, it's just an idea. That's one way you can do it. Some people back in the old days too, we used to do really old school stuff, which is you would build like a thing of steps, literally, and you would. I'll show you here in a second because it's kind of funny. And you can actually do this if you want. Some people might want to actually literally build steps to heaven, you know, their land in the sky. So you build your steps, and you climb them, and as you're you actually build it up, and you build a series of, or a winding staircase or whatever you want to do, and you just copy it, edit, and copy, and you build it up into the sky, and then you just climb up into the sky, you know. It's kind of hard to explain without really doing it, but that's one way to do it. I personally think it's kind of a dumber way, but you know, I like the teleporter method because then you have a trail that you can go up. So now I have kind of 2 separate. I have 3 floors actually. I have a mid floor, an upper floor. I have the ground floor now, and it gives you some options as well. It gives you more, you know, like I said, more areas to build on. But there are some of them way up in the. So you can only see one because I got my. I have my surrounding area, my view distance turned down just a bit, so you're not going to see the other one all the way up in the top. Let's see if I can even click on it. Yeah, see, there they are. So that's one way to establish your, basically your, just your ground base. So let's go to all the way up. So once you've done that, of course, hopefully what you've done is you've laid out either the area that you've already, like your you know, your boundaries, and you know, like let's say if this is your ground floor or whatever like that, you know how big this can be. There's a couple ways you can do that. Let's actually jump down. Show you how high I am. So you could have done it that way, where you built, you know, you laid out literally on here. In fact, let me go back to my land, and I'll show you. Like this chunk that I built right here, I haven't started to build houses and stuff, but I'm probably do that on another stream. I actually laid this out as the exact size of my land. One of the advantages of doing that is not only am I taking advantage of every square, you know, inch of my land, I'm using every bit that I can, but I'm also, you know, I can see how far I can go. It'll also allow me, if I have a tree, let's say, or some, you know, has a funny limb or something, I know how far it can go out before it bumps into somebody else's land. I don't want to bump into other people's lands. They can return my object. I don't want to have stuff hanging off in other people's lands and taking away their prim count. Sometimes when you have neighbors, and if you allow, I don't allow people to build on my land, for example, except for myself, just to prevent this from happening. But let's say if you have a neighbor, and they essentially, you know, they're like literally butted up right next door to you. In fact, there's a lady that has a house right below me. She's been building a skybox. See if I can find. Which side was it? Let's just fall down and I'll see if I can find it. Probably run right into, here it is. See that? So she literally built this right underneath. In fact, this might even be on my land. I think that what I'm looking at right now is a clear section that I put up. Yeah, so the thing that I'm on right now is an invisible thing that, oh no, that's hers. That's not good if it's on my land. See how they've done? They have actually included some of theirs overhangs on my land, so I can prevent that. No, this might be mine, because there's my teleporter. That's really odd, because if you can hear my music, that's my land. There's one of my teleporters, so I'll delete that one probably. But see how they've built right below here. You want to be careful because, yeah, see, they've stretched it in there. There's my little extra cardboard I was kind of putting to my extra prim that I was building to signify where I'm at. She's right on my land. So you want to know kind of your boundaries, because you don't want to build onto somebody else's land and not have know it. I've had plenty of friendly neighbors to where, you know, I'll build a tree house, for example, and I'll build each little limb, or I'll build a section of it, and the prim count, their land will allow for my prims, my building, you know, my materials to go on their land, and it'll never return. they don't have it set to auto return my stuff, so you know I'm taken away from the prim count. So it's a little bit rude, I guess, to say. So I like to know my exact boundaries. I think, as a matter of fact, this piece here I put clear on the bottom. One of my pieces here I did. No, I guess not, but I could always do that if you don't want to. If you want to have an extra area up in the sky, you can do that, and make the texture completely transparent if you want, and then nobody can see it. Just make it like a piece of glass. You can do that, so the ground people aren't seeing it. But I doubt anybody would be able to see up that high with their view distance. So that gives you an idea. There's some of my other steps. See, I'll eventually delete these extra pieces that I used when I was laying out my land. So like I said, hopefully if you've got your land here figured out, you can yeah, I know. I thought I thought of kicking her off my land too, but I have some objects. There's 11 showing. But what's weird is I have auto return on, and I don't see her objects actually showing up on my land, so I don't see it taken away from my prim count either, I don't believe. But I'll check, and if it is, I'm definitely going to say, hey, because I've only got 117 prims. So what you want to do is, let's say if you own a chunk of land like this, if you want to see really, you can go to World, you can go to Show More, and you're going to show either property lines like this, and they'll pop up here in a second. There we go. The green are mine, so that'll show you how far up I can build. One of the easier ways to do it, if you have some land that's kind of funny like this, unless you want to flatten it out and all that, you can actually show landowners, which is interesting to see. This is actually kind of what's cool about the landowners option, is that you can, if you're shopping for land, this is one of the best ways to do it. Not only with the world map, you can just open the world map and look, and each little highlighted area with the $sign. Is for sale, so you can just look around the map and click on it and teleport to it and say, I want to buy that land, or whatever. And that's always easy to do. But one of the cool things is if you're exploring Second Life in this type of view, and let's say you're just somebody booted me off their list. You see those yellow bits over there? You can actually see physically. Oops, darn it. You can actually physically see the areas that. Man, who's blocked? I hate parcel blocks like that. You can actually see what's for sale. You can kind of see the layout a little bit better, etc., etc. You can see what's around it, where it is, and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty handy. That view. So, all right. So let's say you have that view on. All right. I forgot my home set all the way down. Let's go back down to the ground. So let's say you have that view. You could actually you could create and lay out your borders that way. You could do it, like I said, several ways. And remember, it's a temporary thing. Oops, that's the wrong shape. That's a triangle. It's a temporary thing. What you want to do is build you a square. You can stretch it out, like I said earlier. You can actually make a block that is the exact size of your land. You can buy them, or you can get somebody to make you an exact size. I think there might even be some way to do it easier than this. Or you can just you can create literally kind of some markers. However you want to make it, and scooch that to the edge of your land. And then use that as some kind of boundary marker. You could raise that along with your ground floor. I mean, there's just a million ways to do it. The idea here, though, is probably to lay out, if you're building, because I'm kind of going for building on a small chunk of land. It's just easier to do. It's cheaper. But if you're building on a smaller chunk of land, you can afford, or you actually have the ability to lay out the size. If you buy a much larger piece, let's say thousands of just a much larger piece, because they do come a lot larger than this. You're not going to be able to lay out necessarily a chunk of a border thing that large. So you're going to have to just probably lay out the thing that you want to build first down here. Just on a basic prim, meaning lay out your house and everything, and then you're going to attach it all together and pull it into your pocket, basically. So let's say this will be my, my building spot or whatever. And let's say, okay, well, I wanted to build a house as well, so I go ahead and build my house on here. Or if you've bought a house, you can lay the house out on it. So let's say this is my house, whatever. Then what you're going to want to do is lay out all your stuff, even the trees, anything you want. And then, shift and highlight and select them all, or you can drag and select them all like that or whatever. And then link them together if you're going to be able to. Sometimes if you're doing custom stuff, you're going to be able to link. And link basically, that means they're connected together, so they're automatically going to stay together like that. Or if you're not able to link, or if you don't want to link, you can actually just have them highlighted. And then, pull that object into your pocket. You're just going to right click and take or return or whatever you want to do. And once you're up in the air on your chunk of land, let's say, for example, let's just say this is my object. First of all, let's say I'm going to name it real quick. Build this. Okay. So let's call it build this. Let's go ahead and say it's linked together or whatever. So I'm going to take that. Cool, I've got my house laid out and everything, and I know the size, blah, 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 all that kind of good stuff like it. Alright. So then I go up to my land. And again, I like to build... Oh, there's a marker on the map that I didn't know. I like to build, like I was saying, like to stream, especially on the sunset or sunrise setting, because it makes everything a little more dynamic. You can see it a little bit easier. So then I can just lay it out like this. See, and I actually have it laid out. So now I have my house, my layout, whatever, thrown together. And then it's up in the sky, built into the air. Now, I don't know, there might be a way to do this, and some more advanced builder might know this. But I don't know if there's a way to, or how exactly you build up in the air. Like if you wanted to, I thought there was a way you can build in mid-air. I'm not sure. Maybe there is, but if there is a way, then maybe it'll be a little bit easier. But the idea is to not make it more complicated. I mean, you're kind of making it stupidly simple in a way by doing this tiered kind of method of lifting it up and then building. But what you're doing is you're creating a series of steps that are kind of easy to remember, so that you're able to kind of keep it all organized in your brain. Because once you start worrying about your boundaries, and once you start worrying about, okay, well, how high up can I go, and this, that, and the other. If you just make it easier on yourself and maybe build on the ground first, and then establish your upper area. If you build it down there first, and then establish the area up that you want to, up in the sky, the foundation. If you build a foundation in the sky first, then you can just lay it out on the ground like you're building a normal house or whatever, and then just pop it up there. So that's what I typically do. I'm probably, though, at this point, since I'm going for a, let's clear these off. Since I'm going to customize and build my stuff, myself, I'm actually going to just build on top of this land. So what I started doing here is I started building some fences and everything. The key to building with low prims is to build using textures. So instead of actually having, literally build each slat of this fence here, as you can see, I've just used a texture. And it actually has some transparency to it. So it seems like a real fence with real slats in it, but that's just a texture. So that fence right here that I'm building, that you can actually see through, see me there? There I am. It's actually just a texture. So that's only one object. So the key is to use, especially if you're trying to build small, up in the sky, using as few prims as possible. The key is to use textures. And then what you can do is each section of the fence, let's say you want to make that nice and pretty, you can select the face and then change that texture to, blank, make it black, whatever. So see, you have more of a solid wall. However you want to do it, you can do it different ways. You can also create tops to the fence if you want. You can lay out all these, your fence can be several parts just to make a fence, or you can just use textures to do a lot of the work for you. For example, it looks like, if you look at my skybox foundation, it looks like, that bugs me to no end. So there we go. It kind of looks like my, that I've built a block and then I've laid something on top of that. It looks like a layer on top of that, but again, that's just the texture. See, so it's literally just a shadow that makes it look like there's kind of a layer on top of it. And then I've selected the face there on the top of the very top of this foundation, and I put some gravel. See, on the actual face, select face, I would select that. And then I could change that to, let's say, rock. Search for rocks. Oh, those are sketches. Let me find some. Here we go. There we go. So we got more of a rock texture, and you can repeat it. The repeats and everything, of course, are great. So let's select the face. Repeat it less, actually. Spread it out a little bit. So using text. Oh, there I go. Darn it. Let me get back up there. You do have to worry about that. You can sometimes fall off. So I've just used textures to create what looks like a multi-dimensional. You know, like it has more than one part, and it really doesn't. See, I got a rock up part on the bottom. I think it's different than the top. Yeah, so I can change that to anything I want. I can make that like a spaceship thing. I could even make it look like it's got, you know, floating platform things that shoot out, you know, like little nacelles from the Star Trek Enterprise or something. I can do all sorts of stuff with textures and using very little prim. So, like my fencing, for example, I just want it to be real simple. So I'm just using these nice little textures. And another reason I want to do a fence is to kind of not only prevent me from falling off all the time, but to kind of make it a little more personal. So as I lay out these fences here, I'll show you, since it's the same texture all the way around, you can actually just stretch it like this. So as I lay out my fencing here, it'll be more like I'm kind of going for the idea that it's kind of a yard, you know, like a private yard. Imagine, you know, like a small apartment in the city up in the sky. So I've got my fences settled, and I could start building my actual house. Or I can actually buy, or like I got a little tent, and the tent is only one prim. And what's cool about the tent, let's see if I can find it here. This should be it. I might take a second to res. Okay, there you go. So I've got this actual tent. You could make a little campfire up here. That's one prim. So you can make like a campground in the sky. So there's all sorts of ways that you can build using very few prims up in the sky. And then you have parties, you invite some friends over here or whatever, and they won't even know it. You know, they wouldn't even know it. You could have the fence surrounded. I could add a tree here. You could do some cool stuff with grass. Let's say, let's close the Halloweens are cool, but let's say that built somewhere else, didn't it? Where did it go? There it is. Okay. So then you can lay out you can actually lay out grass, a little yard, etc., etc. And see, it starts to really look just like an actual area. Now, you don't have to build a fence around. You don't have to, enclose it like this. You can even use the opportunity of being in the sky to make it, to make the sky the appeal of it. But I like to kind of keep it closed in. So it starts to look like a little yard. And I'm actually in a little box outside. And this is rough. I mean, I'm just throwing this together. And by the way, we're playing Second Life. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, just holler. I'm going to go ahead and link in the chat room to the Massively guide. It's going to, it's good for, if you click on that, it's going to show you what we're streaming every week. I stream Second Life every Wednesday, though, at the same time, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, USA. And I'm always just trying for different. So if you have any suggestions on things I should build or places I should look in Second Life, just holler. Send me an email or whatever, and we'll look into that. But today I'm just building a skybox, essentially trying to establish a building up in the sky so that I don't have to mess with, you know, the common people on the ground floor, I guess. You could do this. This is kind of cool. No, I didn't want to stretch the texture like that, so that's not. You could build like like I said, you could use the fact that it's in the sky as kind of a bonus or whatever. And you could build like a little balcony area. However you want to do it. You know, this is just rough stuff. Actually, let's delete that one. I'm getting a message from a place I used to rent from, but I forgot to pay it. So see, I'm basically building like a little balcony. So you could have people over and say, hey, let's go hang out on the balcony and look over. And you could have like a more inner area like that. You know, so you can do all sorts of cool stuff. With very now, I'm starting to add up on my prims. You've always got to keep an eye on your prims. So I've already put 19 out, which sounds a little high. I'm wondering if maybe there's something off there, but I've still got 98 available. So I'm an artist, so I like to put a lot of my art out. So that I'll include about 30 or 40 prims for art, because each piece of art, even if it's just one prim, basically picture a flat piece of paper, you know, then you know, that's a prim. So let's say 30 for that. So I've got about 60 left for building. So I could put a little kitchen, I could put a bathroom, I could actually build a house with actual walls and a roof, I could go buy a house, however you want to do it. Just add it all up. You might even go to a sandbox and build your ideal situation in a sandbox first, or at least lay it all out and get an idea of how many prims it all is. You could just, and how you would do that is you would just have it all in edit and highlight everything, and it should be telling your prim capacity. Right there, so how many prims everything is. You could do that way. And let's say you lay out your little house in your yard, your campground, whatever you want to build, your shower, your bathroom, you know, and you lay it all out and you say, oh, I'm around 75, 80 prims, and so you kind of get a better idea. Let's say if you get into a lot more though, hundreds of prims or whatever, you have to be aware that, you know, you're going to need larger chunks of land. This is of course the very smallest piece of land you can have, and the advantage of the skybox is it's getting you out of the kind of the areas where you're going to be, you know, it's kind of putting your own on your own little sim area without having to go and pay the higher prices of a private sim. And also it keeps the lag down. But you don't have anything pretty around you either. You know, you have to be aware of that. You know, there are going to be themed areas, sims and stuff like that. You might want to build in, like, say, like a fantasy area, a futuristic sim or something like that. But you know, and those you can always rent from. So just be aware that, you know, that's a different issue. What we're really talking about today, what we're really trying to do is show how using just a really small area of land, building up in the sky opens you up to kind of a little bit more creativity, because you're not surrounded by neighbors and stuff. I mean, if I go look down at the ground, I'll show you. Oops. There we go. See, if I build right here, you see how kind of ugly and plain it is. And also, if you notice, I'm already getting a little bit more lag because I'm loading the textures and the stuff from my neighbors. Now, once that loads, of course, the lag will clear up everything. But I can already tell. You might not be able to tell on the stream, but I'm already getting a little bit more. That's clearing up a little bit. See, so I've got neighbors here that are attempting to build their plot. I've got this ugly thing here, where this is like a haunted house. So building in the sky keeps you, or allows you to really, you know, to get away from a lot of this stuff. If you're fine with your neighbors, cool. You know, feel free to build down on the ground and not worry about it. But and you'll often run into some areas on the mainland that are just fine for building. I'm gonna go to that arrow. I forget what I was looking at there. Anyway, let's go see what I was going towards. So you know, you might want to keep that. You just have to kind of consider what you're wanting to build, and you know what kind of what is this? This is a big chunk of land up here. I wonder if this is Linden land. Unless something's being built. Somebody either owns this or what? It might be just loading in. You see this huge chunk here? So you just kind of have to consider what your what are you trying to go for? I'm trying to go for a very small area, using very few prims to build a very private kind of home. And the skybox is perfect for that. A minimal set of land. If you bought, let's say, a premium account, Second Life, if you joined, not only do you get like well, it depends on the level, of course, but you'll get a weekly allowance from Linden, so you get some free Lindens to spend on stuff. But you might spend $5 or $7 a month or whatever it is, and you get a free certain allowance of land. At the very minimum, you get to have this size that I'm at now, which is, you can see how big it is, and it's not a bad size. But what happens is a lot of people get a premium account and they get their first little chunk of land, and they're like, oh man, I've got all these hideous neighbors, and they're or you build in a nice area. This is a classic that always happens. You build in a really cool area and you're really enjoying it and everything like that, and all of a sudden you realize, oh man, my neighbor's starting to, I thought he was building something lovely, but it turns out he's building this giant club or something. So things can change on the ground floor. Up in a skybox, you're all alone. So your neighbors, although they're below you, and you still have your boundaries, you're basically private. So that's the advantage of the skybox. That's what I really like about it. If anybody has any questions about it, of course, just holler. Give me a chat. As a matter of fact, here is my email, and let's see if I can get this to where you can read it. There we go. So you can email me at beau@massively.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is really good for chatting and stuff like that. You can send any suggestions or whatever, and just say, hey, here's a cool area in Second Life I want you to look at. Here's a cool event, whatever. Can you build this? Can you show how to do that? And I'll at very least, I'll look into it. What I'm going to try to start covering more of is probably building aspects. I might have somebody on here that I can interview, or something would be cool to talk about the mesh. The mesh stuff is incredible. I haven't even begun to even touch that stuff. But you can always just contact me and say, hey, go check this out. Would you like to look at this, etc., etc. You can also tweet me. Every Wednesday, 5 p.m. EDT. I've linked the Massively Guide in the chat room there, but if you want to go to it, basically just go to Massively, and up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the Massively Guide link. It'll show you what we're streaming every week. This week, I am... Let's see, what am I doing tomorrow? I forget. Second Life Wednesday is, of course, every Wednesday at 5 p.m. And I'm waiting for it to load, and I'll have to see what I'm playing tomorrow. But anyway, every day, 5 p.m. pretty much, I stream something. Next week, I'll be doing 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we'll look into that. But anyway, have a good one, though. That's a little bit of Second Life building up in the sky. There's not much to it if you get the basics down. If you have any questions, contact me in-game. Of course, in-game name is beau-hindman. It's not complicated. It's just you've got to really think of it simply instead of trying to overcomplicate things. And if you can keep it simple, you can keep the prim count low, and then you end up being able to get a lot more bang out of your buck for a smaller amount of land. So it's definitely worth it. So have a good day, though. I'll see you guys tomorrow, same PM at 5 p.m. Streaming, I'm not sure what. The Massively Guide wasn't loading. So have a good day, though. I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time.